These next mysteries will make you question everything. So remember, this is for entertainment purposes only. Let's check it out.
It seems that not one day goes by without someone going missing somewhere in the world. And with so many people whose whereabouts are unknown, it's no surprise that there are thousands of missing person cases that are yet to be solved. Number 10. David Schultz, a 58-year-old livestock truck driver from Wall Lake, Iowa, mysteriously disappeared on the 21st of November 2023, and he's not been seen or heard from since that day. David's wife, Sarah, told investigators that she last saw David at approximately 7 a.m. that morning when he set out for work, and from there he headed out in his semi-trailer to a hog confinement farm in Eagle Grove, where he was supposed to pick up a shipment of pigs that were to be delivered to Sac County, specifically a buying station belonging to the Weichman Pig Company. Despite leaving home on time, David reached the hog confinement farm late and only left at around 10:50 a.m., with the hogs loaded onto his trailer. What's known is that he stopped over at the MM126 truck stop, which is situated on Highway 20, as he was captured by Department of Transport cameras that showed he was there for around 16 minutes. The next sighting of David once again was captured by the Department of Transport camera, which was when he was leaving and driving west on the same highway at the Colville-Fort Dodge exit, but no one has reported seeing him after that, and his family has not heard from him since. When his cell phone data was checked, it was found that David drove to the intersection of Highway 20 and 71 Junction, and that he arrived there at 12:18 p.m. Strangely, when he reached the area where he was supposed to turn left towards Sac City, he turned right instead and drove on for about 5 miles before bringing his trailer to a stop. He never made it to his intended destination, and when Sarah had been unable to make contact with him that evening, she became concerned and filed a missing person report with the Lakeview Police Department. The next day, just after 3 p.m., a Sac County employee reported that an abandoned truck was located on County Road N14 and that it had been there since early that morning. Investigators quickly ascertained that this was David's truck, and it was immediately searched for clues as to his whereabouts. They discovered that the keys had been left in the ignition and that it was parked in the middle of one of the lanes. They also found the missing man's wallet containing $2,000 and his driver's license inside.
All of this just sounds weird. Like coming from a person that drove trucks, right? Didn't get off on his turn, found his truck, keys still in it, wallet there. So to me, that don't sound like a robbery. Sound like a kidnapping. They ain't gonna leave the money. It's something got to be missing. What was he into? That's what I start thinking about. Like, what was the person into? You know, did they have like gambling problems? Did they like to cheat? You know what I mean? Was there issues going on between the spouse and him? Like, what? It's got to be something else, more to it that we need to figure out.
Worryingly, some of David's personal belongings were found in a ditch a short distance away from his truck, including a towel, his cell phone charger, one of his jackets, and his pocket blade. The pigs were also still in the back of the trailer. A search of the immediate area around the truck was carried out with the help of canine units, but no sign of David was found. Sarah reported that he may be suffering from a medical condition, and so an infrared-enabled aircraft was brought in to aid in the search, but this also amounted to nothing. There was no sign of foul play inside the truck, but investigators did report that they had collected several samples that have been sent to a crime lab for analysis, the results of which are still pending.
So now I'm looking at the wife, right? I have to, right? Because in order for something to happen to a truck driver, you got to know his route. Who would know his route? Not saying she did it, but I'm just saying as points of interest. Let's call it that, points of interest, right? She immediately called and reported him missing. Right? Went straight, just called them. I don't know if she called any other family members, maybe some of his friends or anything like that, but the reports that they just gave us from this video said she immediately called and reported him missing.
Search was then expanded to cover as many as 100,000 acres with the help of the United Cajun Army and anyone willing to volunteer their time. But this also amounted to nothing, as no further signs of David were found. At one point during the investigation, information was received that a man named David Schultz had traveled to Phoenix, Arizona, after purchasing a one-way ticket for the 21st of November. But when surveillance footage was checked, it was found to be a different man with the same name. During a public plea for help, Sarah stated that David would never leave her and their children without informing them of where he was going, and that he would contact her if something was wrong, leading her to believe that he was unable to do so for reasons unknown. David's disappearance remains a mystery, and investigators don't believe that he met with foul play, though Sarah is convinced that he'd been abducted. He's described as having brown hair and brown eyes, standing 5 foot 11 inches tall, and weighing around 180 pounds. Unfortunately, it isn't known what David was wearing at the time that he went missing. Investigators have asked that anyone with information on where David could be, or who knows what may have happened to him, to contact the Sac County Sheriff's Office at 712-662-7127. Number 9.
That one just still blows my mind. You know what I mean? In order for somebody to do something to you, you got to first pull over. Number one, you're off of your route. Now, they did say he pulled over at this truck stop, right? And a lot of times, what some people will forget to do is when they hop out at these truck stops, forget to lock your doors. So somebody could see you get out of your truck, not lock your doors, go hop in the back, hop inside your cab, wait till you get back in, drive down the road, and then you hop out of the back. You know what I mean? Because when you're a truck driver, your mind is so focused on making the money, that you may forget to lock your door. And then when you get back in, you toss your snacks or whatever over there in the passenger seat, and you pull off and you keep going, because everything is time sensitive. You want to get to these receivers and your destinations, these consignees, you want to get to them in a timely manner. So you might not look in the back. That could be a thing. I don't know. It's just so many different ways you could dissect this. Sad though.
22-year-old Kajsa Frases' disappearance from Beaumont, California on the 23rd of February 2023 is a troubling case to say the least, as she was in her parents' car just moments before going missing, and her case has the added factor that she was only a month away from giving birth. At the time, Kajsa was living in Moreno Valley with her parents, and on the day that she disappeared, she and her mother had spent some quality time together at a gym where they received spa treatments. Following this, they brought a few items for Kajsa's baby and ran a few errands before they were picked up by her father, as they had planned to drive to her grandmother's house for a visit. While the family was on their way there, though, Kajsa stated that she was starting to get hungry, so they decided to stop for some food at a Jack in the Box restaurant in Beaumont. While they were waiting to order food at the restaurant's drive-thru window, Kajsa became upset, though her family has not stated why, and she decided to get out of the car on her own, leaving her parents to order the food. Once they had done so, they pulled out of the drive-thru line to pick her up, but realized that they couldn't find her anywhere, despite seeing her just a few minutes earlier. Quite unbelievably, she's not been seen or heard from since, and still remains missing today. They searched the area in vain, and when they still hadn't heard a word from her by the following day, they reported her as missing to the Beaumont Police Department. Kajsa's
See how the following day, most people are under the perception that, you know what I mean, or you grew up hearing that you need to at least wait this amount of time before you report it to the police, or the police is going to say, well, we can't do nothing till it's been this amount of time. So I don't know that to be true, but I've always seen that, whether it be movies or heard that. You know what I mean? So that's the difference in this story and the first story that we heard. Next thing I'm going to say is, have I heard this before? Because I've never been to a Jack in the Box, but I've heard there's a lot of crime surrounding a Jack in the Box. So I wanted to ask you that question, because as soon as I heard Jack in the Box, that was the first thing that popped into my mind. You know what I mean? So that a lot of crime possibly takes place around those type of business, those type of places. So that was something else I thought about. And then what girl doesn't want to be near her mom during her pregnancy? You know what I mean? So that may kind of let me rule out the parents of being involved or something happening and them being involved. You know what I'm saying? Like, what young girl doesn't want to be around her parents for? And then she just gets out? That's weird. The parents not ruled all the way out, but I don't know.
His mother didn't disclose what the missing woman had gotten upset about, but has since stated that she believes she was in the middle of a medical emergency, though she didn't elaborate on whether it had anything to do with her pregnancy. When investigators asked Kajira's parents why they had waited until the following day to file a missing person report, they stated that they were hoping she would come home on her own, or that they would be able to track her down before having to do so. It's since been reported that the family has been uncooperative during the investigation, though it isn't known why this is the case, since any information could help find Kajira and bring her home. When surveillance cameras in the area were checked, Kajira was seen walking by herself close to a charter school that's located near to the restaurant where she went missing. She was heading southward away from the restaurant and was spotted walking in an area behind a shopping center. Once she had been reported missing, a search was quickly organized of the immediate area where she was last seen, but no trace of her was found. At first, her case was listed as a voluntary missing person investigation, but since she would have given birth in March, it's been changed to a critical missing person case. Kajira's family has since refuted claims by investigators that they were being uncooperative, and stated that they cooperated to the extent that they were able to. They added that the Beaumont Police Department took too long to open the missing person case, and that this resulted in a lot of surveillance footage that could have been useful being lost, as it may have been erased after expiring. Samantha Potts from the Missing Justice organization added that she found it strange that Kajira's parents let her walk off on her own after getting out of the car, since she wasn't familiar with the Beaumont area, and added that it was a very cold night. In an interview with the news outlet, her family stated that Kajira merely got out of the car to get some air, and that she seemed fine before walking off alone. It's unclear where the report that she was upset originated from. The area off of Highway 79, where the restaurant is located, was searched by police officers and search dogs, but to no avail, as no clues were found that could lead to Kajira's whereabouts. Missing person flyers were handed out to businesses and hospitals in the area, in hopes that they would jog someone's memory, but no one has come forward with information as of yet. Investigators don't suspect foul play in Kajira's case, and have described her as having brown hair and brown eyes at the time of her disappearance, and she weighed around 154 pounds and stands 5'7" tall. When she walked away from her parents' car, she was wearing a black hooded sweatshirt with a black shawl, gray sweatpants, and black shoes. If you or anyone you know has information on Kajira's case, you're urged to contact the Beaumont Police Department at 951-769-8500. Kajira's NamUs case number is MP102771.
So how do we not suspect foul play? So what, she just had that baby herself in the woods somewhere and she did all the nursing and having of the baby and delivering it? She didn't need no doctors or hospital assistance? That's hard for me to believe. Not sure what pregnancy was on or if they stated this was her first pregnancy, but if it is, who's doing that? The parents? I don't know what to think though. I don't. I thought I could rule them out at first, but the uncooperativeness, that's kind of sketchy. I wonder, did they see any, like they showed her walking through parking lot. I wonder, did they find any video of where the parents' car was? Where did they go? What did they do? Was there any surveillance footage from the Jack in the Box? You know, interviewing her friends, could they tell you anything about the relationship between her and her parents? Who's the guy involved? Very important, I think. You know what I mean? So I'm pretty sure they probably covered all this stuff, but that would be the question I had. Like, who's the father? Where is he? Is she with him? Did she run away with him and just decided never to come back? Like, that's pretty interesting. But I still would think they would take her to the hospital to deliver the baby, so it'd be some record of her somewhere.
Number 8. A missing person investigation always becomes more urgent when investigators believe that foul play may be involved, and that the missing person may be in danger, as is the case with the strange disappearance of 21-year-old Miranda Connor. Miranda, who originally came from Illinois, is a 30-year-old woman who was living in Denver, Colorado at the time of her disappearance. She shared an apartment with a roommate and is a single mother of 2, aged 9 and 11. The last time that Miranda's mother, Tabitha, spoke to her was over the phone on the 2nd of February, 2023, when she stated that she was having trouble coming up with enough money to pay her rent. She asked if her mother could help out, which she did by sending $300. Despite being short on funds, Miranda didn't seem stressed or worried about anything when she spoke to Tabitha, who told investigators that she seemed like herself, bubbly and not taking anything too seriously. The next day, Miranda called for an Uber driver since she didn't own her own vehicle and was picked up from her apartment, after which she traveled to Federal Heights in Colorado, where she had a meeting with an unknown person. But on the 4th of February, Tabitha received a call from Miranda's son, who asked if she had spoken to her at all, to which she replied that she hadn't. The boy then told her that Miranda had not been home for 2 days, which was completely out of character. Tabitha then spoke to Miranda's roommate, who confirmed that she hadn't seen or heard from her for 2 days. And although Miranda would sometimes leave for a few days at a time, she always asked her roommate to look after her children. And she was in the habit of keeping in touch while she wasn't there, usually making a point of speaking to her kids. The first course of action was to call Miranda's cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail as it had been turned off. When she hadn't come home on the 5th of February, Miranda's roommate reported her missing.
Ping the cell
Witnesses
phone.
reported seeing Miranda.
This one I would like for them to ping the cell phone. The quicker they do that, that'll probably give them a huge lead.
Early in the morning that she disappeared, close to an apartment complex near West 85th Avenue and North Pecos Street in Federal Heights, where she was dropped off by the Uber driver. Initial reports stated that the missing woman was last seen on the 3rd of February at around 1 a.m. in the Green Valley Ranch neighborhood where she lived, but that information has since been amended. When her cell phone data was checked, it was found that Miranda's phone last pinged off of a tower near Thornton, specifically 85th Avenue, and a short while later, her phone was brought back to her apartment by a member of the public, who found it near the apartment complex where witnesses last saw her. Miranda's roommate took possession of the phone and then immediately handed it over to investigators so that it could be checked for anything useful. This is when the case took a worrying turn. A search was conducted in the area around the apartment complex where Miranda was last seen, and one of the search dogs that was being used picked up her scent, which it followed to a purple item of clothing that she's believed to have been wearing at the time of her disappearance. Worryingly, another dog followed her scent to one specific apartment in the complex, and then...
Okay, who did she go see? Who did she go see? This is what we need to figure out now.
...to a nearby dumpster. Following this, the dogs led investigators to a frozen lake that's located next to the apartment complex, though another dog made a beeline for a different complex before returning to the lake. Given the strange and alarming details in Miranda's case, investigators fear that she may have met with foul play, and that her disappearance is being investigated as a homicide. Tabitha has since stated that she's certain someone in the area has information on the case, but is keeping quiet since they're scared of something or someone. Metro Denver Crime Stoppers is offering a $2,000 reward to anyone who comes forward with information leading to Miranda's whereabouts, and her family continues to hold out hope that she'll be found. Miranda is described as...
I know that's not their fault, but $2,000, bro? You're asking somebody to come forward. If they're scared to come forward, do you think $2,000 is going to change their mind or make them feel comfortable and be willing to face whatever it is they're scared to come forward for? $2,000 ain't enough. We got to figure out a way to get more, to be able to convince and persuade people to come forward, man, and say what they know.
As 5 foot 6 inches tall, with brown hair and brown eyes. She weighs around 116 pounds and was in the habit of often changing her hair color at the time that she went missing, but she had long blonde braids. She can also be identified by tattoos that she has, which include an image of Winnie the Pooh on her left shoulder, a tiger on her left forearm, and a hand giving an OK symbol on her right forearm. The last time she was spotted, Miranda was wearing a gray jacket and a purple sweater. Anyone who spots Miranda or has any information on her case is asked to get in touch with the Denver Police Department at 720-913-2000, or alternatively, the Federal Heights Police Department at 303-428-8833, quoting case number 2364647.
Yeah, I think the fact that they didn't mention anything about it makes me think that the person she possibly went to see, if they figured out who that was, is probably a huge point of interest. Gotta be. You take an Uber there and never leave or never take an Uber anywhere else. There's no record of it. Your cell phone pings in an area. The dogs found a piece of your clothing and then they run separate, go different ways. So that's scary because that screamed to me like dismemberment. Like it could be a piece of her here, a piece of her over here, or something like that. You know? These type of cases here are tough, man. And the longer it goes, the harder it makes to solve it.
Number 7. Some missing person cases remain unsolved, despite there being CCTV security footage of that person before they vanished, along with footage of the last person or people they were with. And 21-year-old DeAndre Ford's case is no exception. In September of 2023, DeAndre was working at Diva's Bikini Sports Bar and Grill, which is located in Houston. She'd only been working at the bar for 2 weeks, but on the 22nd of September, she finished her shift early in the morning and then inexplicably disappeared. On the previous evening, one of DeAndre's relatives drove her to work and told her that they would pick her up again after her shift was over, but this never happened, as DeAndre phoned them to say that she would be getting a ride with someone else, presumably from the bar. At around 2 a.m. the following morning, one of DeAndre's friends saw that they had missed a call from her, but when they called back, her phone went to voicemail and had been turned off, and no one has seen or heard from her since. After DeAndre was reported missing at the Houston Police Department, investigators scoured surveillance footage from the bar and found footage of her as she left the building in the company of a man who's not been identified, despite surveillance footage from inside the bar showing that he had spoken to several people that night, and some of those people seemed to know him. He was also seen buying DeAndre a few drinks, and after leaving the bar together, she and the man could be seen getting into a white GMC Savannah van that was parked in the business's parking lot. They remained inside the vehicle for at least an hour before it drove off with both people inside, and investigators are unsure whether she left with him of her own accord. DeAndre has a 4-year-old son at home, and her family has stated that it's completely out of character for her to stay out of touch with him for any extended period of time, causing them further concern. A month after she went missing, a disturbing detail emerged in DeAndre's case when it was revealed that she was a witness to a shooting that took place on the 18th of May. In that incident, a man named Otis Parker lost his life, and DeAndre was in the car with him at the time. It was also revealed that 4 people, 21-year-old Jamal Brown, who carried out the attack, 23-year-old Mariah Green, 21-year-old Kitiana Taylor, and 22-year-old Jarrell Wheeler had hatched a plan to rob Otis and DeAndre of $1,500 and end their lives when they returned from Baton Rouge, where DeAndre and Taylor had been working as dancers during that week. DeAndre was asleep in the car's passenger seat while Taylor was in one of the back seats when Otis pulled into an apartment complex in Houston. A few moments later, DeAndre was woken up by the sound of firearms being discharged, and she only barely managed to escape via the car's passenger side door unharmed. A no-contact order has since been issued against all 4 of the robbers, as they've made threats to end DeAndre's life. Taylor, Green, and Wheeler, who is a Harris County Sheriff's Office detention officer, were all tracked down and taken into custody. When Harris County Sheriff's deputies attempted to serve a warrant against Brown on the 12th of July, he refused to cooperate, and a brief standoff ensued, in which he ultimately lost his life. Brown's accomplices were all charged with capital murder and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and they were held without bond. DeAndre's family has stated their belief that the man she's seen with in the surveillance footage is known to her, and he might be one of her regular customers. They're also certain that some of the bar's employees know more than they're letting on. DeAndre is described as having black hair and brown eyes and stands 5 foot 4 inches tall, and at the time she went missing weighed 170 pounds. She left work that night and was wearing tan pants and a black tank top. Investigators welcome any information on DeAndre's case, no matter how insignificant it may seem, and have urged anyone who knows what happened to her to contact the Houston Police Department Missing Person Desk at 832-394-1840.
So what are y'all thinking? I'm all over the place with this one. I ain't even gonna lie to you. Because you hear about her being in the incident in the car, being asleep, waking up by gunfire, and then the people threatening her. She knows all of them that got arrested, I think it was. And you don't think they possibly could have been like, she can make this situation worse? We need to get to her, silence her or something like that. Maybe convince somebody to kidnap her or something like that, take her. That could be a possibility. Let's not forget that being in a bar is still one of the most dangerous places to be in. Like, people forget that, and we let our guard down. A bar is still one of the most dangerous places to be in. You don't know the people. You're in there. You're getting you're getting drunk. You're drinking a lot. You're having a good time. Your guard is down. You getting to know strangers who could have ill intentions. Then you go get in a car with that person. Could have been a regular, or what you thought was a regular, which could have been a person that was just gaining your trust and coming in there over time till you let your guard down, probably tipped very well, stuff like that. We've seen countless and heard countless stories. Like this is scary. Scary for parents who have kids that work in bars. It's a lot of deception going on in there, a lot of deceit, and could easily gain someone's trust and do something like this. And what's crazy is nobody has no pictures, no video, no nothing of what this person got in the car would look like. And the bartenders or nobody in there could describe them or not saying anything. I'm like them, that seems foul too. Y'all know more than you letting on. Gotta be.
Number 6. Candace Cass, a 34-year-old woman from Meadville, Pennsylvania, has a genetic condition known as Prader-Willi syndrome, which means that she has the mental capacity of a 12-year-old child. Hence, when she went missing in July of 2022, her parents became very concerned, as she was unable to fend for herself and would be very vulnerable without the people who usually look after her. 2 days before she vanished, Candace had climbed out of her bedroom window without her parents' knowledge, as she had done on a few occasions in the past, but she returned to the house unharmed a short while later. On the 16th of July, Candace's parents realized that she wasn't in her bedroom, and when they couldn't locate her, they filed a missing person report at 3:10 a.m., but she's still not been located. Prader-Willi syndrome affects a person's cognitive function, growth, behavior, appetite, and metabolism, and Candace's parents believe that she climbed through one of their house's bathroom windows sometime between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. to search for food, since her medical condition often left her feeling hungry. As soon as she was reported missing, the area around her parents' house was searched with the use of dogs, firefighters, and volunteers from the surrounding community. The search area was extended to the Geneva Swamp, where scuba teams scoured the water in hopes that she would be located, but no further clues were found. Candace's parents told investigators that she only had $13 on her when she left the house, and added that she left her headband and ID at home, which wasn't usual for her, as she always had these two items with her. When news of her disappearance broke, witnesses came forward to report that they had seen Candace walking on a set of railroad tracks on Route 285 in Greenwood Township, and that she was heading in the direction of the Conneaut Lake, which is about 9 miles from the family's home. At one point during the search for Candace, a footprint that was believed to be hers was found close to the train tracks, but investigators couldn't say for sure whether it was hers or not. But the area was thoroughly searched in case she was still there, but nothing was found. What makes Candace's disappearance even more difficult is the fact that her parents made sure that she got plenty of exercise every day, which means that she was able to walk up to 15 miles a day, and if she were to do so, there's no telling how far she may have gone, or in which direction she traveled. Further complicating matters was the fact that Candace disappeared during a time when temperatures in the area were soaring, which not only caused concern for her well-being, but also the health of the people searching for her. On the 23rd of July, the Pennsylvania State Police announced that they were calling off the search for Candace, as they had exhausted every lead they had in the case, but have stated that they'll continue to investigate her case and follow every lead that they receive. Billboards displaying Candace's photo and her information were put up on Interstates 79 and 90, and her family continues to hand out missing person flyers in hopes that someone will come forward with useful information. But at present, there's no indication as to where she may have gone or what has happened to her. A $12,500 reward is being offered to anyone who's able to supply investigators with information leading to Candace's whereabouts, and currently she's listed as an endangered missing person. If you have any such information, you're asked to get in contact with the Pennsylvania State Police at 814-332-6911. Candace's NamUs case number is MP94040. Her family describes her as having blonde hair and green eyes. She stands 4 foot 9 inches tall and weighs 95 pounds. When she left her home that morning, she was wearing a purple shirt, a pair of shorts with a floral pattern, and purple or blue sneakers. Candace can be identified by a scar that she has on her right elbow and another that she has on her right shoulder, which is the result of a surgical procedure that she underwent. She's known to wear glasses with a blue steel frame and is missing her front teeth. It should be noted that when Candace went missing in the past, she was usually found near a body of water.
That's interesting. I don't know, I feel like if it would have been an animal, you probably see like, blood or torn clothing or something like that, because I immediately thought she walking the train tracks, maybe she ran into a bear, something like that, you know what I mean? But you would probably see torn clothing. So maybe the fact that but we have to remember they called off a lot of but I'm pretty sure they went back, but they called it off due to the temperatures and different things like that. Another thing I thought of, out there walking, being picked up by these psychos that be driving up and down the highways and pull over and try to lure people inside their vehicle. And if they're successful, you probably never see them again. You know what I mean? That was another thought I had. So I don't know, man. Prayers goes out to the families. I don't want to say condolences because I know they still have hope on finding her,
Number 5. Over the past decade, 61-year-old Steve Keel, known to his family and friends as Smiley, and his friend Brian Collins have been hunting on several trips together. But in August of 2022, they traveled to Alaska for the first time to do some caribou hunting. Steve, who's a U.S. Marine veteran, is known to have a love for the outdoors, a trait that he's passed on to his 2 adult sons. At the time that he went missing, he was working as an electrician in Dover, Tennessee, and had been married to his wife Liz for 38 years. Steve and Brian made their way to the remote area of Dead Horse on the 20th of August, driving 500 miles to get there after arriving in Alaska. They then drove a further 60 miles, and when they reached marker 349 on Dalton Highway, they decided it would be a good spot to set up their camp, and they each informed their respective families that they had arrived safely at last. At one point during the trip, Steve left a pack of caribou meat about half a mile from the campsite with the aim of picking it up later. And on the 27th of August, he told Brian that he was heading out to do so. This was not an unusual thing to do, and he told Brian that he wouldn't be gone for long. But soon hours had gone by with no sign of Steve, though this also wasn't unusual, as the 2 hunters often didn't see each other for up to 24 hours while they were hunting, as they'd often split up and hunt in different areas. Hence, Brian waited 24 hours before he started to become concerned, and when Steve still hadn't made his way back to camp, he decided to file a missing person report. Both Liz and Brian have voiced their frustration over the fact that a ground search wasn't immediately carried out by local authorities, and they believe that Steve may have been found if this was done. Brian was asked as to why he waited so long to report his friend missing, to which he stated that they had a rule that they would wait 24 hours before notifying the authorities, since they didn't want search parties to waste their time when everything was in fact fine. He added that they'd always had this rule during their hunting trips over the last 10 years. The search would be a grueling one given the vastness of the wilderness in Alaska, and so investigators used helicopters to aid them, resulting in more than $200,000 being spent on fuel, but this was done in vain as no sign of Steve was found. When his family found out that he was missing, Steve's sons flew out to Alaska to aid in the search, as they were both also very experienced outdoorsmen. Together with Brian, they covered as much terrain as possible, but again found no clues as to his whereabouts. Since he was hunting, Steve was wearing camouflage, and this made the search even more challenging, especially from the air. To make matters worse, the area where the two men were hunting is known to have no cell phone service, and the two friends didn't have satellite phones with them. On the 15th of September, investigators believed that they found Steve's remains in a lake near the area where he went missing. But when they were sent for analysis, it was discovered that they belonged to an animal. Liz initially offered a reward of $15,000 to anyone who supplied investigators with information that led to him being found. But in September, she decided to withdraw the reward, as she felt the money would be better spent on further search efforts for her husband. Despite their efforts in difficult and harsh conditions, searchers were unable to find even a single clue as to where Steve might have gone, and to this day, no one has any idea what may have happened to him. Liz has stated that she's hopeful that Steve will be found alive and that he'll be back home in Dover by the time that Christmas comes around, as they haven't spent the holidays apart in 38 years. He's described as having gray hair, weighing 200 pounds, and standing 5'7" tall. At the time when he left camp that day, he was wearing digital camouflage pants with a long-sleeved mossy oak shirt and a camouflage hat. Investigators have urged anyone who spots Steve, or who has any information on where he currently is, to contact the North Slope Borough Police Department at 907-852-6111. Alternatively, you can contact the Alaska State Troopers at 907-269-5511. Steve's nameless case number is MP95099.
So I keep hearing, and I had the question in the beginning about, growing up hearing that you should wait this amount of time, or the police is going to wait this amount of time for filing a missing persons case. But throughout this video, they keep asking people, why did they wait so long? So there's a conflict there. We need to know how long to wait. Or me, I'm not going to wait. Immediately when I feel like I ain't getting you, I'm calling. You know what I mean? And it's just that the case. The reason being I'm saying that, I'm going somewhere. The reason I'm saying that is because imagine in this day and time, you notifying the authorities, and then they can get one of those drones up that could search the area and pick up on like the silhouette of the person along with body heat temperatures and different things like that, and be able to find that person quickly. We've seen it done before. We've seen it. Like, that drone could do things that a search party could never. So I think filing quickly, notifying the authorities and police quickly, and if they have the capabilities, one of those drones could come in handy for situations like this. But you got to be quick, because after being out there so long, they ain't going to be able to pick up no body heat temperature or nothing like that.
Number 4. It's surprising how many people go missing just minutes after telling a friend or family member that they'll be back in just a few minutes, but they're never seen or heard from again, leaving everyone involved wondering what happened in that short amount of time. This is exactly what happened in the case of Heather Kelly, a 35-year-old woman who inexplicably vanished from Kalamazoo in Michigan on the 10th of December 2022, and who has still not been located more than a year later. Kalamazoo is Heather's hometown, where she lived with her 8 children, and at the time she was in a relationship with 38-year-old Carlos Watts Jr., who was out of prison on probation when she went missing. On the day of her disappearance, Heather had a phone conversation with her children, in which she stated that she would be home in a short while. It's certain that she was in Comstock Township at one point, as she was spotted by a CCTV security camera belonging to a business in the area. But that was the last time that she was seen, and when she didn't return home as planned, she was reported missing. The following day, it was reported that Heather's truck had been found close to Sprinkle Road, about 3 miles from the area where she was seen on surveillance footage. Alarmingly, her car had been set on fire, and biological material was found in the back seat. Causing further concern was the fact that her jeans and other clothing were found just a short distance away from the truck, but there was no further sign of her, although DNA samples were collected from the clothing. After her truck was found, authorities organized for a search to be conducted, and a helicopter from the Michigan State Police flew over a nearby wooded area for several days in hopes that Heather would be spotted, but this yielded no results. Later on in December, it was announced that a person of interest had been identified and was taken into custody. But at that point, investigators were unwilling to disclose their name, as the investigation into Heather's disappearance was still ongoing.
I know y'all thinking the boyfriend that came home from jail. Everybody's probably thinking about that right now. You know what I mean? But we'll have to see if they release who it was.
After a tip was called in January of 2023, dive teams were dispatched to the same area where Heather's truck was found burned out, but once again, this failed to turn up any useful leads. But a month later, it was announced that Heather's disappearance had been changed from a missing person case to a homicide investigation.
Whoa.
A short while later, it was announced that Heather's boyfriend, Carlos Watts Jr., could be responsible for her disappearance. He was wearing a GPS tether at the time, since he was on probation, and living in a probation house, but on that day, he was working as a busboy at the Park Club. That same night, his GPS tether's battery died at around 9:30 p.m., and witnesses would tell investigators that he arrived back at the probation house at around 2:45 the next morning. They also added that he had what appeared to be scratch marks across his back and on his chest. When the results of the DNA collected from the clothing near Heather's truck came back, it showed that both Heather and Watts Jr.'s DNA was present.
That's why they gotta find the body too. Looks like whoever she was dealing with, she fought him. So that person's DNA is probably up under her fingernails. They gotta find her.
It would then be revealed that Watts Jr. had been interviewed by investigators on the night that she disappeared, but he escaped from the probation house in the early hours of the morning after removing his GPS tether. Watts Jr. pleaded guilty to a federal escape charge for removing his GPS tether, but in July of 2023, he requested that his plea be withdrawn, as he felt he wasn't in the right state of mind at the time that he entered his plea. Investigators are certain that Heather met with foul play, and a $5,000 reward is being offered to anyone who has information on the case that could lead to its closure or to Heather being located. Heather is described as having shoulder-length blonde hair and brown eyes. She stands approximately 5'10" tall and weighed about 130 pounds when she went missing. She also has several tattoos that include a dream catcher on her left forearm, a lion and a rose on her right forearm, and several other tattoos on her right ankle and left thigh. It should also be noted that she's known to always wear a silver necklace in the shape of a heart around her neck. Anyone who has information on Heather's whereabouts, or who has any useful information on her case, is urged to contact the Kalamazoo County Central Dispatch at 269-488-8911, or the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Office at 269-383-8748. Heather's NamUs case number is MP98860.
Man, I feel bad for those kids, man. I know a lot of y'all sitting there thinking the same thing, like, man, my heart goes out to those children. Jeez, man. I just can't believe some of the things that take place in this world.
Number 3. 46-year-old Morera Monsalve, affectionately known as Mo, disappeared from Wailuku in Hawaii on the 12th of January 2014, and the last person to see her alive has now been found guilty of ending her life, but Mo's whereabouts remain a mystery. At around 3 p.m. on that day, Mo drove to the campus of the University of Hawaii Maui College, where she dropped her son off, and following that, she took her daughter to the Kailui airport. Her ex-boyfriend, Bernard Brown, would later tell investigators that Mo stopped over at his house later that evening, and when she tried to leave, she found that her car was giving her trouble. He stated that she then left his house between 10 and 10:30 and had to leave her car at his place, which is situated in Wailuku. He added that she was picked up at his apartment by someone, though he didn't know who that person was, and stated that she took a blanket and a pillow with her when she left his place. No one had any idea what happened to her after that, but Brown took her car to a repair shop the next day. Strangely, Mo didn't call anyone to ask for a ride home, and when she still hadn't contacted any of her friends or family 2 days later, her daughter Alexis decided to file a missing person report. Investigators learned that Mo's car was at the repair shop, and when they retrieved it, they were surprised to find that it was running well and didn't seem to have any issues. 2 days later, some of Mo's personal possessions, including her purse, were found near Brown's home by Alexis, where they'd been thrown into a dumpster. Suspicion was now falling heavily on Brown, and this was only further confirmed when it was found that Mo's phone was used on several occasions to browse different airline websites, with one search showing that someone had inquired about airline tickets with Brown's name entered as the passenger. Though Brown was certainly considered a suspect in Mo's disappearance, investigators could not arrest him, as they had no evidence to link him to a crime, and he
That's what I'm saying, man. We need the body.
Relocated to California in February of that year, a month after Mo disappeared. Mo's family told the police that she had stated in the past that she was scared of Brown, as he had been mentally abusive toward her on occasion, resulting in her wanting to cease all contact with him since they were no longer in a relationship. Over the following 5 years, searches were carried out at 15 different locations with the aid of cadaver dogs and excavation equipment that was used at a landfill site in central Maui. In addition to this, evidence was collected from electronic devices. Inquiries were made with different airlines, and several people were interviewed with no trace of Mo being found. It had started to seem as though her disappearance would never be solved, but in September of 2019, Brown was finally arrested by the FBI Violent Crime Task Force and the Sacramento Police Department. He was charged with ending Mo's life, a charge to which he pleaded not guilty, and his bail was set at $1 million. Brown's trial started in April of 2021 and saw more than 30 witnesses testify. The following year, he was found guilty of second-degree murder in Mo's case, despite the fact that her body has never been found. It was the first time that a suspect was prosecuted in Maui without a body being found, and only the 6th murder case ever on the island.
It's probably all those people who testified. That's probably what did them in. Because I was sitting here thinking the same thing. Okay, I arrested him, but where are you going with this? Nobody, this probably isn't going to go too far. So to hear that he was convicted, very, very shocking. We would definitely need to hear what those witnesses testified and said and spoke about him. You know what I mean? How close to her were they? And what accounts did they see and have? And what did they say about him? For that to happen, he had to be. He had to be super destructive towards her.
Investigators have declined to comment on what made them decide to arrest Brown, since there hasn't been any mention of new evidence being found in the case. But they and Mo's family are certain that Brown was indeed responsible for her disappearance and passing, and that the right man has been put behind bars. Mo's family is still hopeful that her body will be found, and investigators have asked that anyone with information on the case contact the Maui Police Department at 808-244-6400. Mo has brown hair and brown eyes. She's 5 foot 7 inches tall and weighed 170 pounds at the time that she disappeared. She's also known to wear black metal-framed glasses and was last seen wearing a long-sleeved or 3/4 sleeve t-shirt with pinstripes, black capri shorts, flip-flops, and a brown hair clip. Mo's NamUs case number is MP23732. Number 2. When 19-year-old Olivia Kale mysteriously disappeared in March of 2011, she was living in Mount Washington, Pennsylvania, where she shared an apartment with a roommate. During the previous 6 months, she had been in a relationship with a 22-year-old man named Alexander Lorenzi. Olivia told her family that she and Lorenzi were planning on going on a trip together to Miami, Florida, and on the day that she went missing, the 5th of March, she traveled to her brother's house on Edgewood Avenue in West Mifflin to pick up a few items of clothing that she had left there. She also informed him of their plans, adding that Lorenzi would be funding the entire trip, and the last time that he saw her, She was leaving with Lorenzi in his red Ford Explorer that had a Pittsburgh Steelers emblem on it. To everyone's surprise, Lorenzi returned from the Florida trip on his own, and when Olivia's family hadn't heard from her by the 19th, they opened a missing person case with the Allegheny County Police Department.
Now that already seems weird. You returned by yourself and then you didn't say anything to the parents or anybody that she knows to say, hey, something, I don't know, you didn't even call from where you were. That automatically looks bad towards you.
During the investigation into her disappearance, it was found that Olivia's phone had been switched off 11 days before Lorenzi returned from Florida, and that it was last tracked to an area close to the Allegheny County Airport. When Lorenzi was questioned about Olivia's whereabouts, he was reluctant to cooperate with investigators and gave contradictory statements about where she was. On one occasion, stating that she had decided to stay in Florida, and on another, claiming that he had dropped her off at her apartment when they got back. Lorenzi would eventually be arrested on unrelated charges when his house was searched. They found illegal substances in the building, along with several other items that had been reported as stolen, including a firearm. He was charged with possession and receiving stolen property, to which he pleaded guilty, and he would ultimately be found guilty and ordered to spend 3 months in prison. But no evidence was found that he was responsible for Olivia's disappearance, or that he knew where she was. Searches were carried out on several occasions in the area behind the airport where Olivia's phone last pinged off a tower. But investigators stated that searching that area is like looking for a needle in a haystack, and they were unable to find any clues that could explain what happened to Olivia. Olivia's family organized a vigil in her honor on the first anniversary of her disappearance. But strangely, Lorenzi's mother also showed up, not to show support for the family, but to talk to members of the media. She stated that her son had nothing to do with Olivia's disappearance, but this caused a confrontation with Olivia's mother. As she
I was about to say, how can you, but I know, you know what I mean? Parents are going to ride for their kids no matter what, you know, because in your mind, you would never believe your son or your daughter is capable of doing anything foul. You know what I mean? You would love to believe that. No, and we always say as parents, I didn't raise them like that. There's no way, you know? I get it, man, but everything points to who, though, right?
Her telling her, when your son is found guilty, I believe that he has done something, harm to my daughter. I will be there as well. Investigators from the Allegheny County Police Department have stated that Olivia may still be alive, and they're looking into the possibility that she may have fallen victim to a human trafficking ring. Interestingly, police officers found a clue in 2011 while they were investigating a different case. Ex-Pittsburgh police officer Michael Johns was being investigated on another matter when a car that he had rented was searched, and surprisingly, a keychain with Olivia's name was found inside. Johns was questioned about this discovery, but he stated that he had never met Olivia or spoken to her, and that he had no idea who the keychain belonged to or how it came to be in his rental car. He was never named as a person of interest in Olivia's disappearance. Though the details in Olivia's case suggest that something untoward happened to her, investigators are unsure whether foul play was involved in her disappearance, and her case is currently being investigated as a missing person case. Any leads that are received will be thoroughly followed up on, and Olivia's family has stated that they'll never stop searching for her until she's found and brought back home. They describe her as having brown hair and blue-green eyes. She stands between 5 foot and 5 foot 1 inches tall and weighed 110 pounds at the time of her disappearance. When she was last seen before going to Florida, she was wearing a black shirt, jeans, Ugg boots or sneakers, and she had a diamond stud in her nose. Anyone who has any information on what happened to Olivia is asked to contact the Allegheny County Police Department at 412-473-3056. Olivia's nameless case number is MP10268. Number 1. 23-year-old Lucely Aramburo, also known to her friends as Lily, might be recognized by some viewers of a Spanish show called Sábado Gigante Show, since she took part in the show for several seasons. She spent most of her childhood living in Miami, Florida, until her mother decided to move to Hollywood, Florida in 1997. Here, Lucely's life took a turn for the worse during her freshman year, as she started experimenting with illegal substances, and a few years later, she fell victim to addiction. This problem would only get worse when she turned 16 and decided to drop out of school.
Ooh.
Following this, she started using even stronger substances after she was diagnosed with depression that had been brought on by chemical imbalances in her brain. Her family could do little to help her, as she met a man named David Lamasso in 2003, and after they decided to move in together, she spoke to her family less and less, as she fell further into the trap of addiction. The following year, the couple befriended a computer system engineer called Kristen Pacheco, who was also an ex-Marine. Pacheco was, up until this point, never involved in illegal substances, but after meeting Lucely and Lamasso, this would soon change. But when Lucely was found that she was expecting a child in 2006, she attempted to turn her life around and managed to stop using illegal substances. She also explored Buddhism and managed to get her GED before giving birth in September of that year. Lucely and Lamasso's relationship lasted until 2006, when they decided to go their separate ways, and early the following year, she started dating Pacheco. The couple found a place in East Kendall and started making plans to move to Arizona. But the relationship was a rocky one, and investigators stated that they were often called out to the couple's condo due to arguments and domestic disturbances. Lucely had started using again, but in 2007, she made another attempt at getting clean by checking into St. Luke's Addiction Recovery Center in Liberty City, since she was worried that she might lose custody of her child. But she failed an illegal substance test 2 years later and was ordered to leave the center, after which she decided to go back to Pacheco. Her mental state had declined at this point, and she was once again diagnosed with depression as well as schizophrenia, for which she received medication.
That's why, man, when you be dealing with this type of stuff and you be going through it, man, reach out to people. Don't try to go through this alone. You know what I mean? And reach out to the right people. Don't reach out to the toxic people, man. You're not going to get nothing from it. It's not going to help. They're going to oftentimes make it worse. You know? You hate to hear situations like that because you can clearly hear the person needs help, but may or may not know how to go about it and maybe reach out to the wrong people.
On the night before Lucely's disappearance, she, Pacheco, and two of their friends had been using illegal substances when the group traveled back to Pacheco's condo. The following morning, at around 2 a.m., the couple got into another heated argument, resulting in Lucely leaving the condo wearing nothing but her nightgown, though Pacheco stated that she also took 2 bungee cords with her for reasons unknown. When he didn't hear from her by the following morning, he filed a missing person report, informing investigators that he woke up that morning and realized she had never come home. He added that he did look for her in the surrounding area, but found no trace of her. Unfortunately, the missing person report that was filed sat unchecked on the lead detective in the case's desk for 2 weeks as he was on vacation at the time. Strangely, a search was conducted.
Wait, how does that? Oh my gosh. Not only did something happen to her, her case just sat around and got cold. And they need to go back and talk to the boyfriend. And they need to look at the surrounding bodies of water anywhere around there, any bridges, those areas like that. They don't find it. They need to look at him. They need to go back and look at him, investigate him, check him out as well. But this breaks your heart.
Conducted by canine units at the condo where Lucely and Pacheco lived, but for some reason, investigators neglected a search inside the property. One of Lucely's old classmates from high school, Kelly Ray Starling, was present on the morning that she disappeared, but she was never contacted except for a note that was left with her mother, asking her to contact the lead investigator. She's attempted to do so on multiple occasions and has even left voice messages, but none of her calls have ever been returned. An attempt was made to speak to Pacheco, but when detectives found that he wasn't home at the time that they visited his condo, they merely left a card behind. Both Pacheco and Lucely's family have noted the myriad of errors made by investigators, such as her height erroneously being listed as 5'11" instead of 4'11", but they remain positive that she will eventually be found. Lucely's case has seen a lot more attention in the last few years, as bloggers and internet users have spread information on her case, but at present she remains missing, and her case has now been changed from a missing person case to a homicide investigation, as it's suspected that she may have fallen victim to foul play. Lucely stands at 4 foot 11 inches tall and weighs around 100 pounds. She has brown hair and hazel eyes and was last seen wearing an ankle-length nightgown. She has a large tattoo of 2 musical notes on her back and also has a scar beneath her left knee. If you see Lucely or know where she may be, you're asked to contact the Miami-Dade Police Department at 305-418-7200. Lucely's nameless case number is MP1542. Thank you guys so much for—
Oh my gosh, talk about messing up the case. It sits on the desk. You run the wrong information. You show up and just leave cards and don't follow up or nothing. Like, do y'all even want to figure out what happened to her? I ain't heard nothing like that before. Whew. Listen, man, these were some of the strangest mysteries I've heard. If you guys have heard this and can confirm more information that you've heard about it, put it in the comment section, bro. These are crazy, man. Y'all be safe out here. Be safe. This world is cold, cruel, and the people in it are are even worse. Y'all get at me in the comment section, man. Let me know what you think and stick around and stay tuned. Till next one, I'm gone.